Good evening and welcome. Yeah, I'm Doug Vanderwilt from Fort Collins. I'm a computer engineer with expertise in design and manufacturing automation and longtime interest in renewable energy. I'm also a NABCEP certified solar pro with recent hands-on experience. Commercial, residential, PV. I've done service, commissioning, design, and led over 5 megawatts of installs, mostly in Colorado and Florida. I did it for Kenyan Energy as well as Bella Energy. Just recently in transition though, next week I'm starting with an area monitoring firm. It's called Also Energy. It's in Boulder. Yeah, thanks a lot again to NCRES for allowing me to speak. Here's my outline. I'll start with a quick PV 101 style overview, then review some of the main technology and trends. I'll spend some time on practical considerations with a residential focus, and then review some area system examples as well. Photovoltaic solar capacity in this country nearly doubled last year with 14.7 gigawatts installed. This was about 39% of all new energy capacity. PV and wind are the lowest cost new energy sources, and they together provided about 65% last year. That's significant, all right. Note that so one little caveat, they both only provide energy for part of the day. So you know that's not as firm as we like, but it's still really good. Natural gas generators, of course, they provide much of the remainder of the new power, but they can be firmer, obviously, and that's another term for that is capacity factor. Of course, that comes at a little more cost as well. So I recently read an update from Sarah Kurtz at NREL and really like this quote. She says, "We cannot find any past projection that PV would grow so fast." A few more facts. Global solar increased about 45%. So we added 74 gigawatts in 2016. Solar job census in Colorado is up about 20%. Utility scale solar costs are now going down. I mean, this is good, and it's tough for the solar installers, right? People are starting to expect like $1 a watt for new utility scale solar. That works out to about 5 or 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's a levelized cost of energy costs, so that includes the operational costs as well. So I think, while capacity factor and firmness certainly need more attention, the prospects are excellent. There's better choices, improved payback, continued growth, and regulation. Why did I put that word in there? Well, that's actually good news. I mean, the more success we have, the more solar will be regulated as well. So it's probably good news. Now, I'll attempt the PV 101 with one slide. So, yeah, hang on with me a little on this one. I'll just start with probably the most important part is the cell. The cells convert light from the sunlight to electrical energy. Those things are assembled onto modules. The modules have frames and, of course, glass and other things to make them weatherproof so that they're practical things we can put on rooftops. Those modules get assembled mechanically into arrays. They're put on racking, either on a rooftop or on the ground. So that's of course the most visible basic part of the solar system. Taking light from the sun and converting it to clean DC power. That's going into an inverter. And then, so in a typical residential grid-tied system, it's just simply an inverter, no charger. That's producing AC to feed normal household loads. Any excess power can be fed through the meter to the grid. And of course, when they're at nighttime or whenever there's not insufficient solar, we also get power from our grid through the meter to normal AC loads. So, yeah, I guess I can talk right now that essentially the grid is a very nice battery for the solar systems. Very big battery, very efficient battery. So if you want to go off-grid or have backup power, you add a battery bank, right? They're also made up of cells. I think they're about 2 volts apiece. They're assembled into batteries, which then can be wired together in banks, put in enclosures, so you've got a energy storage cabinet. Those are also DC. A typical backup system or off-grid system would actually have a separate charger. It would be directly between the PV and the battery, so it's DC coupled. You're getting your energy right into there. You can still get energy out of that battery bank through the inverter to your household loads, or even excess through the meter to the grid. So there's all the flexibility is there. You just have equipment, the right controls. If you're talking about a backed up system or an off-grid system, we usually separate out what we call critical AC loads. Those are the ones that you want to run when there's no grid available. Okay, so those would be, you know, a refrigerator, some of your lighting. That can then be, you know, you don't even need a PV system to do that. You can charge up your battery from AC, and then when the grid is out, you can turn it back into AC for the critical loads. When you have a battery system, it's also very easy to get DC loads, handle those in the house. And let me talk about, I guess, one other case. Let's just say we have a large utility scale solar system. Still pretty much the same. You've just got way more array. You've got way bigger inverters, or maybe, you know, multiple inverters. You probably don't have any AC loads at all other than some of the electronic equipment for monitoring the system. And you're just feeding power right into the grid. So that's a basic solar system, and I'll start talking about those components. And I should ask if I will take short clarifying questions, but most of the questions I'd like you to hold till the end. So I'll move to technology, starting with cells. I don't expect you to read this chart. It's available from NREL. Just look at the general trends here. This is efficiencies starting at about 1976 to the present. Lots of good progress you see. And here is a better view of recent data. So the purple at the top, that's multi-junction gallium arsenide cells. Those are really expensive and generally only for, I call them out of this world applications. That's what that means. So that's, you know, space where you can afford a very efficient cell. For the mainstream, that's in blue, silicon. Of course, you've all seen those things. They are in the lab. We're now starting to exceed 25% efficiency. And from what I understand, the theoretical efficiency of silicon is 29%. So we're really getting there. Maybe you thought thin film, that's in green, that went away, but it's actually doing really well. The efficiencies are getting really good, and I'll talk about that a little more later. There is a thing called concentrating PV. So it's designed to take, you know, light that's through a mirror or a lens that concentrates it. And plenty of emerging options. Perovskite, that's one of them that really looks promising. I think that's this one here. It really took a fast ramp, but it's got a lot of stability problems. That means it just doesn't last very long. So PV modules, they've been improving a lot in cost, efficiency, and reliability. Real important factor is that the performance degradation mechanisms have been identified a lot better now. And that's something that, like Sarah Kurtz I was just reading in her paper. The modern modules are only degrading it's less than 0.5% per year now, sometimes as low as about a third of a percent per year. That's due to technology that is anti-PID and LID. PID stands for potential induced degradation, which is voltage, it's making it do it. And LID is light-induced degradation, which is basically UV degradation. There's options now for bifacial modules, which actually will get light from the front as well as reflected light in the backside that will increase the performance. Add an additional cost, of course, as well. Dual glass if you need stronger modules, more durable, or maybe a harsh environment. Non-glass if you need lighter modules. BIPV, I'm sorry I didn't spell all these out, but that's building integrated photovoltaics, and that would be like for your windows, shingles, tiles. There's some options available for all of that. It's not that compelling yet, but some of it's coming along pretty well. And as I mentioned, thin film has had a lot of recent efficiency gains, so it's back in the game, especially for utility scale, because it's got a better thermal coefficient. In other words, well, regular solar produces less as you heat it up, okay? Thin film doesn't have quite as steep of a power loss as you heat it up. So you can think of that would be good like down in the Arizona or California deserts for a big utility scale system.
Is that because they don't get as hot because they're thin, or is it truly more efficient?
I don't know. I have not heard. So inverters, this is kind of a ditto here, improve cost, efficiency, and reliability. But thing to watch there is there's a lot of new module level power electronics options. You've all heard of microinverters and optimizers. There's even some manufacturers that are trying to drive that down to the cell level so that shade on an individual cell will be better handled. So another big factor in design with inverters now is inverter load ratio. We've known for a long time we can exceed the rating, so we can have like 120 kilowatts of DC power in just a 100 kilowatt inverter. Okay, that's a 1.2 AC to DC to AC ratio. What that helps with is gives you a higher capacity factor. It also increases the return on investment over a long lifetime as well. Here's a few recent examples of inverters just to show you what's happening. SolarEdge, I believe they're shipping some of these models. They have them up to 7.6 kilowatts. They are 99% efficiency rated, and they weigh about 26 pounds. Okay? That's really cool. And of course they...
7.6 kilowatts?
I don't know if that one, the 7.6K, is that weight. I think it will be, but those have not been shipped yet, so it's kind of a wait and see. I know you can get at least 5K at that size. They meet, of course, the new code includes arc fault protection as well as rapid shutdown, and increases to both of those in 2017. Let me talk a little about Pretel Energy. I want to make sure you know about them. They actually bought back the Refusol line from Advanced Energy. Okay? And they've now got U.S. headquarters here in Fort Collins. So they're announcing and ramping up their 24K and 48K inverters. So those are some other options. Chint Power has up to 60 kilowatts in basically a string inverter with an option for a 20-year warranty. So that's a good picture of how the inverter industry is really progressing. Mounting options are getting greater. Here you see, a rooftop mount. And this on the left is actually an HD wave from SolarEdge. Cost improvements for installation and materials are happening in the racking area. Of course, on rooftop, you know that flashing is standard now if attached to a rooftop. That's a quick mount PV, for an example. East-west options are becoming available as well. That's shown here. That can help on a commercial rooftop system pack more solar on a rooftop with less ballast. Because you can see they're basically acting as wind deflectors for the other row. And they're almost kind of acting like single-axis trackers that you can get some power off of the east side in the morning and more off the west side in the afternoon. So it's kind of like fixed tracking. Single-axis tracking is getting more and more, well, it's roughly 10% additional cost now. And the energy harvest is around 25% better. So you can see the economics are there for large systems. What the backtracking, so here's a single axis tracker. These posts are oriented north and south. And then the modules, they tilt like a sunflower, east and west. What backtracking gives you is like very early in the morning, instead of being at an optimal angle, they're going to backtrack a little so that they don't shade each other, okay? So that happens in the morning and the evening. So that's a pretty standard feature on a lot of those now. All right, I'm ready to get into storage here. Just showing a few examples, hopefully some of the most interesting examples. The first 5 on this list are lithium-ion battery packs, and that's what's getting all the press lately, obviously. But let me just start with the more traditional Trojan. That's a flooded lead-acid battery. I configured a 20 kilowatt-hour battery pack and got about $128 per kilowatt hour. So you can see it's by far way cheaper for storage. The caveats for that is that, first of all, you've heard that 50% depth of discharge is probably all you want to do for conventional batteries. If you go deeper than that very regularly, you're going to shorten your battery life. The other thing is just the maintenance that goes on with keeping those batteries filled. If you let things get out of hand, you can easily lose the whole bank, and they all have to be matched pretty well. So what these first 5 battery sets are really good at doing, they're starting to get, the price is still pretty high, but it's starting to drive it down a little. And the really important thing is that these are consumer-friendly devices. They're light enough that you can mount them on inside your garage on the wall. They really don't take any maintenance. So yeah, and you can use about 90% of the energy typically out of them, and the price should be coming down. I don't think Tesla's actually shipping the Powerwall 2 yet, but that's 13.5 kilowatt hours. So that already would match, the same energy as half depth of discharge for this big Trojan battery pack.
Life expectancy?
I think they're talking 10-year warranties on some of these, but they're supposed to have a better cycle. Cycle life. They're designed for daily discharge. Some other types, I want to mention nanocarbon. Outback Power is pushing that now. You've probably heard of iron Edison. That's less efficient, but can do better in deep discharge as well as a lot of cycling. NiCad's still around. It's still pretty expensive. You've probably heard of Prieto batteries. That's a new twist on lithium ion being worked here in town. They're trying to increase the density a lot on lithium ion. So there's a lot of things going on. Things don't typically happen as fast in the battery world, but it is progressing well. You mainly need to look at the dollars per kilowatt hour. BOS is balance of system, you know, the other parts you need to make that work, and what kind of maintenance are you going to have to do to the battery. And that includes like depth of discharge, your cycle life, the warranty, weight, installation. I better move on. Look at some storage. How do you approach storage here? Because batteries are expensive. You want to get a lot of value out of them. Let's start by just looking at this curve. This is an actual 1 day of real measured data right here in northern Colorado. I did happen to pick a beautiful sunny September day. The green, of course, is the solar input to the system. The red is the actual entire, the energy use for the home, okay? The whole home. And it's pretty much an all-electric home as well. So what you see here, you know, the area, this green area is excess power made by the solar that in this case was pushed back to the grid. If you had batteries, you could store that, right? So what could you do with batteries? Of course, if you didn't have a grid, you'd get a lot of value from this energy by being off-grid. So you provide local power when the utility is not available. But already you can see that, I mean, it might work this day. There might be enough green energy here to offset all the red area here. Just barely. And you're not going to have this, always have nice days like this. Pretty soon you're going to get winter, you're going to have clouds, you're going to have snow covering the modules. You're going to need maybe 2 weeks of battery. You're not going to be able to afford that. So there's a guy here that can talk to you about generators too. Probably several. So that is high value, but like here in town, it's not very valuable because we have a very reliable power grid, don't we? Yes, we do. So what can you do with a battery? You know, backup power provides some value. Time shifting might give you some more value. For instance, you can reduce demand. Like if these spikes in demand are affecting your rate quite a bit, you can use your stored energy to reduce those, get you all down under a certain base load. That can reduce your rate. If we ever end up with time of use rates where we have more expensive electricity in the evening, for instance, you might want to shift that power via battery to this area right here and reduce your bill that way. So that's time shifting. There are a few cases already, mainly Hawaii now, where we're starting to get to a situation where the utilities are not allowing their customers to push solar back on the grid. I don't know the details of this. I don't think they're doing this for everybody, but they're certainly offering better rates for customers that do not push power back on the grid because they're getting too much of it. So zero export is another strategy where you maximize your self-consumption. So if your energy is not worth very much to the power company, you want to use it as much as you can locally. So that's your main strategies for storage. I think I'm ready to talk about, a little more practical residential, but I'll first start with this is just one slide on the industry overall. Residential is now getting the costs and trends. It's getting down to, plus or minus $3 a watt. It's usually more, but it's right around there. Module level power electronics is getting much more important at the residential level, because a lot of the easy roofs, the easy backyards that had no shade are already done. So there's more challenging rooftops out there that need solar edge or in phase, that sort of solution. With commercial, costs are getting down under $2 a watt now. I mentioned the east-west option that are giving you faster installs, less ballast on the rooftop, without actually penetrating roofs. Utilities are now starting to bump down against $1 a watt. The trackers are really driving that industry. Thin film is helping it. I'm going to talk more about all these systems for utility. Pretty much all of them are 1,000 volt rated. That's 1,000 volt DC ratings. There's even some now that are starting to use 1,500 volt DC ratings. The reason for that is by increasing that DC voltage, you get higher efficiency in the system. You have less wiring costs, and other accessories can go farther. So you have longer strings. It's obviously a more dangerous system. You better be inside of a fence for that, but those are very, very efficient systems when all you're doing is making as much power as you can. So that chart below just shows some 2015 to 2016 comparisons. Look at how the price has been dropping. I probably should mention a little about what kind of drove 2016. There were a lot of projects in the pipeline because people thought that the investment tax credit would start to fall away. So we probably had artificially high demand during that year. So it might not be as good this year, but it's still looking good. I mean, it's still going to grow a lot, maybe not quite as fast as it did last year. So there's been a lot of competition in 2016 that's driven that down as well.
I'm sorry, the $3 to $4 a watt for residential, does that include the tax credit or not include it?
It does not. So I think that's these are raw costs before your incentives and tax credits and so forth.
If someone were actually building this, they'd actually pay less because they get the 30%
yes.
federal credit.
Yes. Jim?
When you're talking about those high capacity DC power amounts, what does that do to what you need to do with your inverters? Or is it still something that can be inverted into the AC? Or do you have to keep everything on a DC grid?
No, the question was about, for the 1,000 volt rated system, for instance, you still have inverters that are converting this DC to 480 volts or some other medium level voltage. Okay, so it's really the same, but it could also be used for a high voltage DC system. But it's usually the same inverters, but obviously they have to have better components inside the inverters, or they're going to have arcs inside and a little smoke and so forth. So I'll get into the how-to. You've got a lot of choices now if you want to do solar for your own home or ranch or business. You can own it, obviously. A leasing really means lease your rooftop to somebody else. They can put solar on it, they can sell you power back, so you'll have an agreement. That allows you to get solar right away without any upfront money. There's also the option of a community solar garden where you're just buying shares in a system like the one here on Riverside. I think those were all bought already, but people bought any amount of shares they wanted, and they get that power credited to their bill as if they produced it right at their own house. So you can also just purchase virtual renewables directly from your utility. So what you're doing there is really supporting new green energy on the regular utility. So if you don't own your home, or if you don't have a good resource, too much shade, you still have a lot of options. Of course, there are still plenty of incentives. Desire is the best website to research those. The main one is still the 30% federal investment tax credit. That's what ITC is. You might be able to get loans, rebates, production credits. I believe that Fort Collins Utilities has a limited number of 50 cents a watt rebates for residential and commercial. Efficiency projects are still, I mean, I'm all for solar, but efficiency projects can often pay back a little quicker than solar. But they're still, yeah, it's very complementary. You can do both. So now I'll go through just a quick typical residential project plan. You start with an assessment, and you're typically doing this with an installer partner, but you could do it on your own too. You're designing a system, going through some iterations to find one that meets your needs, your budget, your long-term goals, whatever you have to input in there. When you're ready to purchase, you still need to do permitting approvals. You might need permission from your HOA. They may have covenants regarding rooftop. Yeah, quick, John?
Actually, a recent change in the laws was that HOAs cannot prevent you from putting solar panels on your roof.
Right. They still may have some guidelines, right?
It's still polite to
Yeah.
say,
Right.
more than realize you have to say no.
Right. So you do need electrical permit, structural permit, or structural approval, fire approval. There has to be like certain walkways on your rooftop if you do it there. Then you're ready to purchase stuff, install it. This is getting down to a cookie cutter thing. Sometimes it takes hours to install a system, okay? And then you wait a while for inspection and permission to operate. I guess the main point I'd like to make at this stage is just that the materials cost, the installation costs, those are really getting down there. There's a lot of other things that are highly variable and can really add a lot to the expense. And that's why, for instance, residential solar is so expensive, because you've got to do all that stuff for a very tiny system. So.
What about connect fees?
I don't think there's typically any connect fees.
Recharge.
Pardon?
Question?
Yeah, repeat the question, please.
No, you repeat the question.
I didn't. I'd like him to repeat the question first.
What about recharge?
You're talking about some utilities that actually charge you to have a solar system on the grid?
Yeah, not all of
Fort Collins does not.
Does not. Okay, so yeah, he's making I can't really answer what the individual utilities do, but he is making a point that some utilities will charge an additional fee to have a solar hooked up to it. So, yep. All right, just a couple of things I don't want you to forget. You ought to make sure your insurance covers that if you have a solar system, and that they will help you do a re-roof and reinstallation if you need to, because typically you'll, at least once during the lifetime, you'll have to rip the whole system off, not for any good reason about the solar system, just because you have to replace your roof due to hail or whatever. And then you'll have to put it all back on. So that adds a lot to the cost of the system. Another thing that we haven't thought of, only some of us have thought about a lot about decommissioning, recycling, because we don't have a lot of systems that are getting to that age yet, but we will. So there are some good options, but not enough yet. So. All right, let me cover some tools for estimating solar resource. PV watts is the classic. Numbers are all still the same in there, but they do have a few new features in it. Scores such as the sun number are often available. Like there's one on Zillow now. You can often find that. More classic tools when you're on site are called the Solar Pathfinder and the Sun Eye. There's many web services that will help you do this. Google Project Sunroof has just added a lot of the Front Range here to their system. So that's a Fort Collins view. So you can just quickly see, like, here's a good rooftop, there's a good rooftop for solar, just based on color coding. Your main factors, of course, are shading area that you have, whether it's on the rooftop or on the ground. The azimuth is actually which direction that rooftop faces. So 180 degrees azimuth is straight south. Tilt, that's how much slope you have on your roof. Few quick recommendations, kind of glean from this being in the service industry. You know, inverters typically fail first. So you want to do what you want to choose the right ones, obviously, and have good warranties, but anything you can do to avoid temperature extremes for your inverter will help you out. Shade is often growing near your array, so don't forget about that. Or if it's a new house, make sure you plan for shade. Or put your chimney on the north side if you can, okay? And your vents. Rodents may be present. They may be destructive. That's very hard to predict. Some squirrels never bother. Some make a real mess. Adding rodent deterrent to your rooftop array is usually not too bad of an option, cost-wise. You can always have roofing issues, but flash detachments have helped that a lot. Cleaning is typically not recommended in this area. We typically get enough rain and snow to clean those modules. It's kind of difficult because it can be a safety issue. You probably want a professional doing it. You probably won't, if you clean off the snow, please use a long stick or something. Don't get up on your roof. It's not worth, the amount of extra energy you get is not worth breaking your leg, or worse.
12 cents, come on.
Yeah. So maybe I'm too practical, huh?
It's really a serious issue.
Yeah.
There's many hundreds of deaths in the United States every year.
Yes. So monitoring is very important. It does add another failure point. In fact, most of you probably know that monitoring probably fails more than inverters do. But I didn't put it at the top of the list because it usually doesn't take down your production. But it just makes you wonder, is something down or is it just the network? So monitoring can be as much of a pain as it is a help, but it's usually a good thing. And remember, there's a lot of monitoring options available, but you can always just, every week make sure you check your inverter, make sure the lights are showing good production. You can record your data and see if you're getting what's expected. So yeah, you want to do regular maintenance as well. You want to partner with a quality installer. We'll get to those. Here we go. This is a partial list. I'm sure I missed some people, and it's kind of focused on residential as well. But here's some folks that do it in Fort Collins. Burnham and Son. Sam, I'm not sure how active she is, but I think she's still in, her website's still going. I know she's still doing some service. Collins Control and Electric, they focus a little more on off-grid and generator situations, but they can probably help you out as well. Mile High Solar is out of Loveland. Again, Zeke is a little more focused on off-grid, but got a new folks, Sandbox Solar in town. Yeah. Yep. Namaste Solar as well. We got a CRES member from Namaste. They're a big firm. They do a lot of commercial work, but they are still, I applaud them, they're still doing a lot of residential as well, including in this area. So others from Boulder will come up here too. EcoMark is one from Denver, and there's others from Denver as well. Okay, are they? If you want a national firm, the ones most active in our state are Solar City, Sunrun, and Vivint. I think Sungevity is shut down now, but
Is Solar
So-
City Elon Musk?
Yep. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all in the family or something. Yeah. We got any other installers here that would like to mention their name? So, just quickly,
I'll put in a plug for the guy that I used.
go ahead.
Greystone Solar.
Grace Loan,
Yeah, they're Fort Collins based.
okay,
Just put a system on my roof and I'm delighted.
great.
There's Bob's Solar and beer.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, the color's a little weird. It looks snowy, but here's some example systems. I am winding down here. Here's new construction up Risk Canyon. This home was rebuilt after the High Park fire, and I actually designed and installed that. Noteworthy is that yeah, it does have E-gauge monitoring, the house and the solar. Here's one that was just recently done by Solar City, right in town here. Again, it just popped up. They do it so fast, it's amazing. But obviously, there's quite a bit of paperwork and stuff beforehand. But yeah, you can get solar in a week if you want it.
I see why you want that chimney on the other side.
Yep, and it was discussed before, but yeah, it didn't work out. So I'd say a lot of residential is obviously on rooftop. It's probably up to 10 kilowatts. When you get into commercial, there are also a lot of on the rooftops. I'd call a commercial system typically between 10 kilowatts and a megawatt. So but they're all over the place. Here's one that NABCEP did for CSU, and the Atmospheric Conservancy helped with that. And that's the rec center. They actually did a bunch of different rooftops. That's not 1.2 megawatts there, but total they did 1.2 megawatts as part of the SP3 program, I believe.
Yes,
So
the city of Fort Collins.
here's a 2011 vintage. Is that the right year, Mike? Yeah, right on. Odell's has been doing it for a while. So yeah, way to go, Odell's. They've got about 77 kilowatts DC on the rooftop. Collins Control put it in for them. City of Fort Collins helped with the funding as well. I found their public monitoring system and just checked them out, and they're doing about 100 megawatts per year. So, megawatt hours, excuse me. So energy. That's really impressive. So here's a couple of utility examples. The biggest one in this area by far is Rawhide Flats. That's by the Rawhide coal plant. 36 megawatts DC. It's all a single axis tracker shown up here. 190 acre site. They, UE put it in. They're a Boulder based firm. I think this PSEG Solar Source actually owns it, and they've got an agreement with PURPA, Platte River Power Authority. So here's, I guess, really a tiny utility scale system that's just 1 megawatt. It's in Northwest Fort Collins, put together by, it was the last SP3 project done by Sol Systems. WGL is actually a large East Coast utility, so it's very interesting that they found this project, they invested in this area. Bella Energy put this in. I led the project on site. I'd like to just mention how it was actually quite low impact construction. We didn't disturb much, very little waste, and even a solar powered construction trailer. So, but you can also see that up on this one. You see a lot of grass here. That's a good sign that they didn't like bulldoze the whole site and turn it into mud before they they put this system in. That's very possible to do that. So, I should also mention that PVREA has done a lot of systems very similar to this. I think they have at least 10 megawatts of single axis tracker around this area. And then, of course, the Riverside solar plant that CEC, Clean Energy Collective, they put it in at the old pickle plant. That's very similar to this LaPorte solar system. Also right here in town, just a little smaller, 600K. All right, I think that's enough. In summary, I have seen and look forward to a lot more progress in PV solar, as well as a lot of options in transportation, energy, cleaner transportation. I think that's really happening well as we both increase our efficiency as well as reduce combustion. I'm confident that we can actually meet our energy and air quality goals even while we have population growth and business growth. So, looking at this picture, I'd like to just imagine a minute, the cleaner air as well as no transmission lines. You think we'll ever get there? I do. So, I mean, that doesn't mean we won't have transmission, but we'll have it more distributed, hopefully more efficient there. And I'll go through these points yet. You've got a lot of quality solar options available. You as well as any business that's looking for solar. The costs are declining and I think stabilizing. So if you've been waiting a long time for this price drop, just go ahead and do it. I think things are stabilizing. The exception is probably in storage. It's progressing a lot. There's a lot more room for price declines in the storage market. And the other thing, the utilities are learning new directions. We've got a progressive one here. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Load defection is not, it may be starting a little, but it's not a mass exodus at all. Some of you have probably read that paper from Rocky Mountain Institute. Storage, pricing, regulation, those things are going to be changing a lot in the future to help meet this challenge. And PV solar will be a major part of our energy future. So, I think I'm just going to leave it with a bunch of references for you. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll open it up to more questions.